The reason why I'm doing these lessons is because God is going to speak to others through you. And they're individuals who are looking for certain assurances. But even with all of this information, as I said before, that we have at our disposal today, there is still an element of faith that we have to exercise. And I believe that's the beauty of it as well. I believe God always responds to faith. And so we have to believe what we don't understand by faith through the word of God and what he has shown us through his word, what he speaks to us directly, what he's teaching us through lessons like these and or Sunday worship services or our own personal study time. And as God is speaking to us, as we're meditating in his word day and night, that God is still working in those ways too. But I believe God is giving us more and more of him so that we can become better disciples, better followers, better witnesses. As there's so much counter information out there that people are using to deceive others, we can counter that with the information that he's allowing us to see now. And so that's why I believe that studies like these are incredibly important, because there are people who believe they know based on the things they read. Think about Lee Strobel's story. Based on what he learned in his science class, he believed that there was no need for God. There was absolutely no need for God. And how in the world could you justify or reconcile evolution and God? He said, I don't understand how you could do it. So he wasn't convinced. He said when he learned what he learned about evolution in high school or in his grade school years, his quote was, God was out of a job. And so there are a lot of people who feel exactly that way based on what they have been taught and they believe they know based on the evidence relative to the theory of evolution. And based on that theory, they believe just like Lee Strobel did. And so as we become witnesses and lights and individuals who are encountering those individuals, the goal is to arm you with information. Every time, and I tell you, every time, I have a parent come to me as their children are having second thoughts or doubts or trying to figure out, because listen, that evolution, those things, all of that is the stuff our children are learning in schools every single year. It is chapter 1 of every world history book. And so as our children are learning these things, and they're being told that it's scientifically, that it's a theory, because theories means they're unproven. However, it is taught as though, this is what it is. Yes, we've got these gaps, but we know we're going to find them through archaeological evidence and all these other things. And so they leave believing that this stuff is true. When I used to teach college history, I would tell them my background. They would know I was a pastor. At the time earlier, I was not a pastor, I was a minister, and I would teach chapter 1. And these kids would come up to me who grew up in the church and would be like, Professor Brown, how can you teach this? Like they were like, they were looking at it like, wait a minute, this runs counter to everything I've been told through the word of God. And I would answer them, listen, it is a theory, it is a theory. It is not a fact. There are countering theories that are still under development. Some of the stuff that, if I was teaching this class now, and in college, I can do it. The struggle is in elementary school and middle school, probably not elementary school, but middle school, high school, when they're getting this stuff, teachers have a lesson plan. They don't have the same kind of latitude that I had when I was at the college level to be able to bring in those countering narratives and have those larger discussions, because at the college level, it encourages that. But in these other schools, here is a lesson plan. This is what you teach. You don't get to go outside of that because that's not on the test. And so a lot of these kids aren't getting that information. And so I'll tell you a quick story. I was teaching history at a divinity school here in Georgia. And I was asked to teach the class at the last minute. I had less than a week. They said, we got a book already. So here's the book. We had a last minute teacher that couldn't teach. Can you do the class? I just met the president and a couple other people, I think a week earlier. And my pastor at the time introduced me, working on my doctorate in history, had taught some college history courses. And so I got a phone call at the church and they were like, can you do it? I was like, sure. So I go in, so we already got a book. I know I don't have a lot of time, but I appreciate you bailing us out, here at the last minute. I go to, they said, listen, a lot of people here, they're pastors, they're always wondering, why am I have to take English and math and history? But he says, but if we're going to be an accredited university, we got to teach all that stuff too. So make it relevant. So I get the book, I open it up, chapter 1, evolution. I go to class. I teach chapter 1. 4 the weeks out, I get a phone call from the president and the dean of the college. And they go, did you teach evolution in class last week? And I said, yes, I did. They said, why? I said, because it was chapter 1 of the book you gave me. Long story short, they had to go in and kind of talk with the classes. And when they left, I asked, I said, what did you all expect me to do? I was talking to the students, do you all expect me to ignore chapter 1? And one of the students said, every teacher before you has. And I told them, well, I'm not them and I will not avoid it. Why? Because every last one of you, if you're pastoring or ministers or working in churches or any of that stuff, every child in your church is being taught what I showed you last week. And when they come and ask you as the church your response, you cannot simply say, well, we just don't believe that. Because they're being told it as though it's true. We can't put our heads in the sand and act like it's not there. And so we've got to be able to give an answer when those questions come. And that's why I am so excited about this particular study, because it's giving you that answer when your children, many of you grandchildren, are coming and asking those questions. You can point them in this direction. And so every parent who comes to me, their children are asking those questions, I send them a link to this video. Let them watch it with their children. Tell them if they have any questions, call me. Let's talk about it. And let them see that there are countering stories out here that I believe that are so much more incredibly believable than single cell organisms turning into fish, one day getting legs and walking out of the water that can now breathe out of the water, turning into lizards and everything else, splitting off through all of these other morphings that take place. And eventually we get us. And so always been a hard thing for me. And so I'm so excited about what we are learning through all these different scientific, archaeological, astrological disciplines out there that's pointing us to God and not to some cosmic accident.